Well, hello, everyone. This is Mitchell Moat, an extension agent with the UT-TSU Extension Program here in the Rutherford County Extension Office, bringing you episode number 2 of the Yard Smart series for 2022. You know, every year homeowners and other folks in the community will bring samples of plants that appear to have a problem or something wrong with them, and they'll bring them here to the extension office for me or for one of the other ag agents to look at and hopefully identify what the cause of the problem is, and also make recommendations for controlling or managing that problem. Now, the volume of samples is typically greatest during the spring and the summer months. And in the case of some of the fungal diseases, unfortunately, it's too late to treat the problem with a fungicide by the time a homeowner notices those symptoms, simply because the infection occurred much earlier in the spring of the year, and it takes a while sometimes before some of those symptoms become really noticeable. Today, I'd like to show you a couple of examples of those kinds of problems that we see in our area every year. First up is this problem that occurs on apples and crab apples and pears and others. Folks will bring in an apple leaf sample covered with yellow spots with orange centers, like you see pictured here. And they'll bring in a branch clipping or a picture of an ornamental pear where the little pear fruit appears to have sprouted a mass of orange hair-like growths. In both instances, the symptoms that we're seeing in these examples are caused by related rust diseases. In the first case, with the apple, it's cedar apple rust, and here in the pear is something called cedar quince rust. Now, both of these diseases require two different host plants, with cedar being the one required by both diseases, and then apple, pear, hawthorn, or quince as a second host. Now, pictured here, what you see is it's a gall on an eastern red cedar tree, and this picture was made in April. And this gall has produced these orange jelly-like tendrils that are called spore horns or teleal horns. And these are the structures that release the spores that are then carried by wind. And then when the wind current allows those spores to land on susceptible apple or crabapple species, it will infect the foliage, and those lesions, like we saw in the very first example, will begin to develop on those leaves. So those leaves will then get the yellow spots, and eventually the entire leaf will turn yellow and will typically fall off the tree prematurely. And some fruits, even on the fruiting varieties of apples, the fruit producers, sometimes you'll even have spots on the fruit itself. Now, in this picture, again, this is eastern red cedar tree, and this is in early April. You'll see these examples of the teleal cankers or swellings. The orange jelly-like material it's kind of the same stuff that was in the cedar apple rust gall we saw earlier, but this is cedar quince rust, and these masses, orange jelly-like material, that's releases the spores that are then carried by the wind, and that are going to infect the susceptible pear, quince, and hawthorn species. Now, like cedar apple rust, cedar quince rust can cause leaf spotting, as well as the very noticeable fruit infections like we saw pictured on the example with the Bradford pear in the previous slide. Now, homeowners can protect susceptible plants from both of these rust diseases by treating them preventatively with a fungicide that contains the active ingredient myclophenol, such as in this Immunox example that you see pictured here. Now, treatment needs to begin before the leaf tissue becomes infected, and that's going to kind of be through that April and May time period. April and May is a typical infection period. If you're going to try to protect, susceptible species in your landscape from infection from cedar apple rust or cedar quince rust, then you're going to start those applications before you actually see symptoms of the rust disease developing on the foliage, early April, and then you're going to follow it with the treatment interval as directed on the fungicide label, and that could be anywhere from 7 to 14 days. But once you get past the end of May, then typically the danger of infection is over with, and you can stop treatments. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, homers also will frequently bring in examples or samples of flowering dogwood leaves, like what you see pictured here in the June-July time frame each year. And those leaves will have these kind of small dark-colored lesions or spots, like you can see in this example. Now, this symptom is caused by a disease known as spot anthracnose. It actually infected the tree during or just before the blooming period. Here you can see, and this picture was also made in April of this year, but you can see on these flower bracts the reddish or the purple colored lesions on the bracts themselves, and that's telling us that the spot anthracnose has already infected the flowers here, and they'll in turn, then those symptoms will start to appear on the leaves. Now, fungicides that can be used to control. There are fungicides that can be used to control these. Now, a good thing is, I guess, is that the disease has more of an impact on the appearance of the plant than it does the overall health. Now, as I was starting to say, there are fungicides that can be used to help prevent this disease, to help control it. Those that contain active ingredients such as chlorothalonil or such as myclobutanil or propiconazole, like you see pictured here, can be used to help prevent dogwoods from showing the symptoms of the spot anthracnose. But the first application has to be made when the flower buds begin to swell in the spring of the year, and then follow up with repeated applications every 7 to 14 days as directed by the product label until the flower bracts all fall off. Now, like I said earlier, fortunately, this disease doesn't really have a big impact on the overall health of the tree. It just has more of an impact on the appearance. So even if a fungicide application is not made in time to control the disease, the overall health of the tree should not be impacted too much by that. As I come to a close here, I do want to make this disclaimer. Any brand names that were used in this presentation were solely for example, and they should not be viewed as a recommendation of one particular brand over another brand. As always, folks, again, my name is Mitchell Moat. My email address is mmoat1@utk.edu, or the phone number is 615-898-7710 here at the Extension office. So if you need further information, if you have questions, reach out to me or to one of the other agents here at the Extension office, and we'll be glad to try to help you. Well, folks, I believe that's about all that I have for you. I hope you found this information useful, and I hope you'll tune in again next time. But until next time, this is Mitchell Moat from the University of Tennessee and the Tennessee State University Extension Program saying so long.